School. We have such a beautiful panel before us, and it's amazing to see such learned, enlightened person. All the way 10,000 kilometers away from here is Mr. Ajay Basant, who's also a former student of the Salwan School. He's right now he's the High Commissioner in the High Commission of India in Ottawa, in Canada. We have with us Mr. Anup Mendiratha, who in fact has broken the records from all perspectives, let me put it this way. Mr. Anup Mendiratha is also an alumni of the Salwan School, Rajendra. He presently is the Secretary Legal Department, Secretary Legal Law, Government of India. And it's happened for the first time that a judicial officer has been placed at such high level. We have with us Mr. Vinay Mittal, an amazing human being, an amazing person. He is a chartered accountant by profession, but then again, he chose a very versatile career into investments, into advice, and it's awesome to have him with us. We also have Ma'am Shivani Verma. Shivani Verma is a lawyer by profession, but then ultimately she said that, okay, look, law is only for those who want to study and they don't want to live a life. I'm going to pursue my career, and that's going to be classical art. And she is the disciple of Birju Maharaj and Shobna Narayanji. With us, we have an amazing panelist, and that's Harjot Kaur, the youngest out here. Harjot Kaur is again an alumni of the Salwan School, Rajendra. She is a playback singer, and she's sung in many films as a playback singer, and amazing record she has broken, and she's done extremely well for herself. People do equate her as the mini Lata Mangeshkar. So not that today we're going to ask her to sing, but surely she's going to be sharing her experiences. We have Mrs. Sudha Shastri, a motivator, an extremely interesting person with a very diverse field in education as well as training. She'll be joining us in a couple of minutes. So can I request my co-host to take on this particular session with Mr. Vinay Mittal, because I don't find Mr. Michael Dias, who's supposed to be with us right now. So, ma'am, would you please start, please, with Mr. Mittal, please.
Sure. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mittal. A chartered accountant by profession, but for a long time interested in too many things. And when I asked him that what made you a chartered accountant, what is it? Is there some gold dust which was sprinkled on you? And he says that it is not destiny, but it is sheer hard work and perspiration which makes you a chartered accountant. For 16 years, he's been working in banking, financial investment, and a lot of related allied services, hand-holding a lot of organizations for the next phase of their growth, particularly the small and medium-scale industries. An alumni of SRCC, it is no mean feat to be there, and we would like to know from you, sir, for all our students, that how has been this incredible journey of yours from SRCC onwards, and what made you such a sought-after person for investment banking and financial advice?
Thanks, Seema. So good evening, everybody. Seema, you've been very kind. It's been not that well planned a journey, really, but yes, I did go through all those events that you've narrated over the so many years. But a very competitive world out there. It was in our time, but it's more so now. I mean, really blessed are the people who know where they are going and have a planned path, glide path as such. But most of us really don't, at least I didn't in school time and maybe even college time, have that much of clarity of thought as to what are going to be my disciplines, what am I going to graduate in, postgraduate or professional degrees, and then move on to a job. Then of course there is this gap between aspirational careers and your own competencies. you need to get over that also. So let me take my example and go through how I made through my life right from college onwards. I'll skip the school period because that was not really anything to go by. But by the way, since I'm not from Salwan, I'm from Columbus. Anyway, so, you know, in school, we are mostly undecided. Although nowadays we got this career counseling, so it's little easier to, because at least the options available to you are told. In our time, I mean, I was flying blind in the sense I didn't know what the options really were in front of me, except for civil services or accounting, and maybe go on to become a chartered accountant. So then, you know, mostly people go on with the flow, and by elimination, you kind of land up with a particular set of subjects. It's usually, it could be science, it could be commerce, and if it is humanities, then I suppose people are mostly going into maybe civil services, or want to sort of deviate away at a later date into more specialization and do their masters in the subjects that they like. Luckily, I got into a good college. It was competitive then, as I said, but I think it is more competitive now. Not sure whether I'll make it in these times. But even in college, I was quite undecided whether to go in for civil services or to do an MBA like most of the folks, and or go into law. Law in my time was not really a sought after career path, right? It was a default situation. And so was CA for that matter, really. But anyway, I landed in CA. Luckily, I did CA from a good firm. And then I managed to, at that time, it was in CA that I think a bit of enlightenment struck me. And as Seema said, hard work. Yes, a lot of hard work and perspiration went in that time. And then from CA, my first job was in what I wanted as such was investment banking. So now, if I kind of conclude from my career path as to what are the takeaways for the students really, and could I have planned it better? I certainly could have done that. First, the hard work and perspiration should have started much earlier, right, in school itself, because it makes it that much easier. And so, yeah, but for me, it struck me at, I think I was 23 or 24, but hey, I still made it. But with you guys, with the competitiveness out there, I think it will be better to start a little early in life. Moving forward, you know, but even if you're undecided, with mostly a lot of folks are, it's not too late. Even if you go into college and decide then what you want to be, and have in a manner of speaking, a meeting of your heart and mind as to what you want to do. It's not too late to put in that bit of hard work and align your thinking, right? But you need to keep asking yourself these 2-3 questions as to what excites you, right? And what are you good at? Because that'll answer a lot of your questions, uncertainties in your mind. Then you must interact with a lot of folks. Maybe some people that you look up to, your peers. Nowadays, people are quite aware of what's happening, right? In our times, I don't think so many people interacted, and the concept of mentors, I don't think so that was that popular at that time, and people didn't or maybe it was not given the name of a mentor really. But nowadays, it's it's a done thing to have a mentor and be able to talk, and people are willing to talk and spend time with you. That really helps to clarify what you really want, because in each job, for instance, if you're a CA and you want to take up a, and do what you want later on in life, you could have banking open to you, you could have practice open to you, you could have corporate finance, you could have just pure accounting in a company that could be open to you.
Mr.
Okay, what do you like?
One of the students has raised a question here that how
Mhm.
to become a hedge fund manager, because in the present context, I mean,
Ah.
it's a bravado that somebody would like to become a hedge fund manager, but I'm sure that you can inspire us to become one. And how do we do that?
Look, a hedge fund manager, look, I mean, the way to go about that is probably through three avenues, which is either a chartered accountant, MBA, or a CFA, a chartered financial analyst. The jobs available now in hedge fund managers that are getting lesser and lesser. So it's becoming a smaller group, a very sought after kind of a job. But these three degrees, and more so a certified financial analyst, is the one which is going to be really helpful. So
And
after
how do you
graduation,
become a chartered accountant in the first place? Because so many children, they aspire to be chartered accountants, and they get a bit jittery about how to crack the exam. So would you like to suggest something to them?
well, to do your chartered accountancy first, you must make sure that you give enough thought to it, right? In the situation, and it's going to be very difficult. It can be a drudgery there. But so if you've decided that yes, you would like to become a chartered accountant, great. Take a call whether you like to do practice or a job, right? Because if it is a job, then you need to find a good firm to do your articles and your practical training from, right? If it's a practice that you want to go into, then take a smaller firm, because then you'll be able to do and learn what you need to do in a practice. With respect to passing your exams and studies, my advice would be have friends who are like-minded and who are serious. If you
That's
do not have a
that's
peer
good.
group, if you
Yes.
do not have a peer group which is a little bit like-minded and focused, it's
Makes
going
all
to
the
be difficult.
Thank you so
And
much, Mr. Mittal. That has been a great piece of advice to our students, and many of us are aspiring to see most of our commerce students going on to become chartered accountants, and nothing could be better than this live example that it is very much possible. Don't take it as drudgery, but take it as a challenge and rise above it. Thank you very much.
So, Mithil, I'll come back to you soon, because I find that I have almost about 11 questions which are directed towards you. So just let me come to Mr. Ajay Vasaria, who is the President, the High Commissioner in the High Commission of India. He is a diplomat and who joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1987, received his early education in Mumbai and Delhi. He did his bachelor's in economics from Stephens, and thereafter master's degree in business administration from IIM Kolkata, and a master's degree in public policy from Princeton University, the US. Mr. Basaria has served as the Undersecretary to the Minister of External Affairs on the East Europe Desk 91-92. He's also been the first secretary to the Indian Embassy in Berlin in 95-99, where he looked after commercial matters at a time of rising economic engagement between Germany and a liberalizing India. He was also interested in the project for the development and construction of the now icon building of the Indian Embassy in Berlin. He was also appointed as the private secretary to the Prime Minister of India in 1999. Now, Mr. Basari, if I go on like this, I think I'm going to overshoot this entire slot which has been fixed for the 9 speakers. So let me just straight away come to you with your career. It's been a very dynamic career, and I'm sure that wherever you've been, you left great legacies, and people are very fond of you. They speak very well of you. So in your entire journey, what have you felt? What what have been your struggles, and how would you like to introduce the civil services, including the IFS, Indian Foreign Service, students who are aspiring to be the next, the generation civil servants?
Thank you very much, Salwanji, for that very kind introduction, and hello to all my co-panelists and all the young students who are watching us. I'm delighted to make this connection. It's a back to school moment for me. Only thing is I'm about 10,000 kilometers away from school, but it's great to be getting the feeling that there are a large number of kids who are watching it at the same stage as we were well, a few or several years ago. But I think in many ways I'm grateful to Silvan School, because I had my formative years here from the age of 9 to 16, and that is when we start toying with the idea of what the future is going to look like. So I think it's been something of, and I'm very grateful for the school, for the lifelong friends I made and with whom I still am in touch. On my journey in the government, I think it's been a very rewarding journey for me. It's been a very interesting journey. And so I think, let me just divide my comments into three parts. What made me choose this career? What is interesting about the civil service? Is this for you? If you're an 18-year-old today thinking of what to do with your future, and what do you need to, if you think it is for you, what do you do to get in there? So simply speaking, I chose to join the foreign service, the civil service, because I found it fascinating. I was in my 20s when I made that choice. I already had an MBA, but I felt that this would be a more interesting career. And what you mentioned, I think in making a success of your life, you often have to flow against the tide. So you need to make choices which are often not expected of you or not expected of you. There would be pressure. For instance, after I had MBA from IIM Calcutta, the pressure was to join a more lucrative private sector job, but I felt that what interested me was a career in public service. And the second time I made this choice was when I was offered the administrative service or the foreign service, and I asked myself what I really wanted, though everyone, including my parents and a lot of friends, said, stay in the country and join the administrative service. But I decided to go ahead and make a choice of joining the foreign service. So I think one lesson there is that often in critical times, you will be faced with a choice and a certain expectation, but successful folks will always tell you that you can defy the expectation. And as Vinay said, ask yourself what excites you, what's in your heart. What does a career in diplomacy give you? And I think I'll mention diplomacy as well as civil service, because there is one common sort of way of entering these services. But what drew me to the diplomatic service was the promise of a variety of experiences. So I felt that, I wanted to live a life not of a super specialist, but someone who could experience over the course of a career a variety of experiences. So that was one. The second was that I wanted to work on a wider canvas and a global canvas, and that is what I got in working in a global diplomatic service, to be able to make policy decisions as well as to be able to see the world. So that was the second important thing. And the third important thing, if you're looking for a career in public service, is a commitment to public and social service. I think that becomes an important factor that sustains you, because when you're working on the development of the country, when you're working on projecting it abroad, I think this becomes an important factor. I think there are downsides to it also. You work in a hierarchy, so you're not quite your own boss, and you're not in, like an entrepreneur would be. Your salaries may not be so high as in the private sector, and that is again a downside, but there are multiple compensations. What are the qualities, the personal qualities people look for, or let's say will qualify a person to join the civil service? What would I ask a person in an interview if the person would like to join the civil service? I think people management is very important. Uh, uh, you know, a leadership quality which allows you to deal with people, and if you are dealing with larger numbers of people, to be able to lead groups of people, that is important. Of course, they will tell you that a certain degree of commitment and of course a certain degree of analytical ability. But I want to caution you, all our young friends right now, that don't go by what personal skill sets your peers or your teachers are telling you have now, because we see over a course of years the extroverts become introverts, the introverts become extroverts. You develop the skills. So if you're following your heart, you will be able to, over a course of a career, develop the skills to go on. Is if you decide, I think this was one of the questions you had posed in your email, if I decide today that I want to join the civil service, what do I do? Well, it's a organization called the Union Public Service Commission, the UPSC, which conducts annual civil service examination, and that takes in about 900 people for all the services across the board, which includes the foreign service, the administrative service, the police service, the revenue services, and so on. So there is a single examination. At this point of time, I believe that you need to be 21 as the minimum age to take a shot at the civil service exam, and you can take 6 shots at the exam till the age of 32. It's a 3-stage exam with the preliminaries, the mains, and an interview. And the focus is on generalists. So general studies is a hugely important thing. So if you're a news junkie today, you love to follow the news, you love to know what's happening in the country in all the time, and you know you are a news junkie, and a general studies exam makes it much easier for you. And one of the things that is recommended for civil service aspirants to do is to read NCERT textbooks of class 6 to 12, and essentially that becomes the core of the examination. So it is essentially a service or an examination that is checking you on very general qualities, including your interest in the world around you. So I think that is broadly what I wanted to say. My own journey has been fascinating. I was in Pakistan just a few months ago for 2 years as the High Commissioner. I was expelled from there in August, and I find myself today in Canada. So it is, you know, there are many interesting ups and downs and many interesting, different, diverse experiences that you tend to get in the diplomatic service, in the civil service, and that's what I want to say. And lastly, I would say for a young person getting into the civil service now is a very exciting time to be representing India, to be working for India in public policy, because this is an India which is now going to be 75 years old in 2022. That is the year we'll have a major global impact, because we will be hosting the G20 summit in India. But let's say from the journey of India from age 75 to age 100 in 2047, it is going to be an exciting time. This is an India that aspires to lead the world and to become a major economy. So becoming closely involved in public policy as part of that journey will be something very exciting for those who are considering this career. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Mr. Kusaria, thank you so much. But just one clarification, what we needed was that you were involved in various initiatives in Pakistan, including the Kartarpur corridor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So therefore, when successfully you were able to take that forward and you have actually given the initiation to both the governments, and fortunately enough, this was open. So there was no reason for the Pakistan government to have reacted in such a whimsical manner. And pardon me saying that the word expel was a bit too harsh to hear from you, especially I would have thought of possibly thinking that the nation was too small, Pakistan is too small for you. So therefore, as a matter of fact, let's say, take it this way, that your posting to Canada is sort of a promotion, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, thank you very much. I use the word expel because for our young friends it would resonate. You get expelled from school. But in this case, it was not being expelled for my personal qualities, but something let's say my parents did, which means what India did for on Kashmir. But I was simply a pawn in the larger geopolitical chess game that goes on between countries. And of course, that was not anything personal. But what I wanted to highlight was it was personally very exciting to be part of such a process, which kind of moves you suddenly from one place to another. But again, I must tell you that my posting in Pakistan, I spent about 2 years there, was very rewarding. There is a huge paradox there of a very strong personal friendship that you develop with Pakistanis, but when dealing with a state which is structurally against India and makes all its decisions to defend that idea of preserving its power, it becomes a little more complex. But that is part of the excitement.
So, Mr. Bisari, it would be correct for me to say that some people are carbon copies, others make their own impression, and you are the one who's made your own impression in your career, and everywhere you have kept your flag always flying high. And I see that lovely tricolor flag at your back, and we salute you as well as the flag at this situation. Ma'am, can we have your interaction with Shivani?
So thank you so much, Ms. Shivani Verma, for giving us this opportunity to interact with you and motivate our students to think about taking classical performing arts as a profession. And Ms. Verma, what is completely intriguing is that from the field of law, how do you become a classical dancer of such repute? So what happened down the line from the field in judicial system to a completely different platform of performing art, and that too classical art form? So would you like to tell our students something about your life trajectory?
Thank you so much, Mr. Salwan and Seema ji, for having me on this very august panel. It's part of the experience of being a classical dancer that one gets to meet, such wonderfully accomplished people. And in my journey, I think for me, the most important part has been having met people from all fields of life that possibly as a lawyer, I would not have had the chance to meet, because there is a different trajectory to that. I started learning classical dance, Kathak, when I was about 7 years of age. But I started dancing at 3, and I'm sure a lot of the students are, in some way, because most of our parents want to put us in some classical, whether it's music or dance. As a child, you're always expected to do a little bit of something. And what happens along the way is that sometimes, many times, because of the discipline that it requires, or the hard work, or just the fact that it's a regular routine, you sort of lose your interest in what began as a very interesting thing. So typically when I started to learn, it was my mother's dearest wish that her daughter should, learn how to dance and, stand in a particular way. And just one day she saw Sonal Mansingh. She was a very famous Odissi exponent that I don't know if the students must be aware of. And she said, oh, my daughter has to be a dancer. And that's how it began. And as most children love dancing of all forms, I took to it very, very happily. What happened along the way was that when I reached high school and when I got, very, very occupied with my studies, and I, started to, hang out with my friends a lot, and the interest in that sort of wavered. And I'll be very honest that I did sort of, get very bored with it because it was just it was a very big part of my life. It just kept going on and on and on, right? I never thought to be a professional dancer. However, in classical dance, mostly, there are a few exceptions. You start learning when you're very young. So it sort of carried on with me. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I come from a background of, my family mostly is full of lawyers. And just dinner table conversation used to sound so exciting, that they'll all be discussing cases and all that. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And I remember when I told my mother the first time that, I want to do law, she said, it's not like the practice. There used to be a show that used to come, like Suits now, there was a show that used to come on TV at that time. So, it's not like that. Come with me to court and watch what's happening and then decide. Okay, fine, I'll come. I went to court, I loved it. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I finished school. I'm a alumni of DPS Arkepuram. I finished school and then I joined the Lady Shri Ram College and did political science, because again, my parents' advice was that I should pursue, and which I think was very good advice, to not go straight into a professional degree course. I know it's very tempting to go straight into what you think, but at I think 17, 18, you're probably not fully aware of what you want to do. And I'm the perfect example because, I went from one direction to completely the other. And I did a...
For law, Shivani, for law, people have this very analytical, very logical, argumentative kind of mind. And then you come to performing arts, to classical dance. Yeah. So it's a complete different mind shift. So how did you find this very major change of life? How from the analytical to emotional and affective domain, how did you reach there?
Yeah, see, education doesn't go to waste in any case, right? So my learning as a dancer or a dance student as a child is what allowed me to become a dancer later. If I had not had that training consistently over the years, for whatever the reason may be, I would never have been able to choose between the two. The choice would have vanished for me completely. Right. The thing is that with law, the analytical mind now, it's helped me as a dancer as well. To have studied and to have done, to have practiced as a lawyer does in fact, so when I as an educated dancer present myself at any forum or any avenue, I speak differently, I write differently. For example, if I have to, perform something, I will always write out a concept note that, that anyone can understand, right? So if someone watches a performance, you needn't be a connoisseur, you will be able to get the gist of it, even if you're someone who's just reading in an office and saying, okay, do I want to present this or not, right? So words help is just another way of speaking. So I think it's very important to understand that learning doesn't go to waste. And either way, for me, in my case, both things have added to whatever I did. I could not pursue the law because at one point I decided, I loved it. I loved practicing. But at one point I decided I got this whole chunk of, because I kept performing simultaneously. I was lucky enough to get performances. And if someone would ask me
about the opening and the closing ceremonies of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, that was 2000. But people just saw me in places, and I was fortunate enough that luck played its role. I was fortunate enough to get my chances. But then I would put in the effort to make sure that chance did not go to waste, So, and again, as I said, there was this period where I lost interest completely. And that was in school, because also your peer group sort of, a classical dance is not considered like, oh, come on, let's do, like these days now there's ballet, there's jazz, there's piano, who wants to do Kathak, Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, whatever, or classical music. However, we have the best teachers here, we have the best avenues here, and we get to be who we are to the fullest, and that is an experience that you learn with as you go on in your journey as a dancer. I used to say I'm a lawyer, but I dance professionally. That used to be my stuff, because everyone asks you when you go somewhere, oh, what do you do? So I was like, okay, I'm a lawyer, but I dance.
and to a great acclaim, you have performed for this amazing choreography that is on Bapu, and that is one of the finest works that our students would like to see sometime, and inspire to be a classical dancer.
Yeah, I would love to. That's actually
you'd like to give to our students if they're passionate about dance. So what is it that they should be thinking about before taking a plunge into classical dance?
Okay. So firstly, it's more about feeling. There's not much thought involved because as a professional choice, the pitfalls are that there is not that much money in it, right? So you have to be, and also there's a lot of dedication. Of course, there's dedication in everything you do, but somehow in a transactional way, if you think, okay, I'll put in this much effort and this is what I'm getting in return. If you think of it as a monetary thing, it's not for you, right? But if you're someone who wants to create those avenues, if you're creative enough, intelligent enough to want to create those avenues, whether it is through teaching, through education, through just raising patrons, you have to now we've reached a point where we need to inculcate that sense of belonging to the culture again. And if you have that drive in you, it's very important. It's very important not to get bored of the routine, because the routine is and I think most successful people or most people who have achieved anything in their lives, and I'm of course very far away from that journey, because as a classical dancer you have to be aware that you're constantly learning. I have gurus till now, and I hope I will have for the rest of my life.
I'm having learned from Pandit Birju Maharaj ji, and then Ms. Saswati Sen,
and
so
yes,
and Ms. Guru Shobhna Narayan. So much you've learned from such great maestros.
And not only
that,
that,
students, Vani ji, that they have this very commonly asking question, that how does dance help us to deal with the stress that's become a part of our everyday life? So how is it helpful to us?
So these days, I think anyone who has an art in their life, for especially this Corona lockdown period, I don't think they would have noticed anything. Like honestly, like everyone I speak to is artist colleagues and all, because you immerse yourself in what you're doing so fully. So riyaz, which is practice, daily practice, right? It's such an important part of how you function that you just do more of that. You spend more time reading. Which exposes you to so much more you may not have time for, because you had to travel to socialize, to work, to destinations and all. Performances would come up, and another thing I'd like to mention is that, it's not about, as Mr. Bisaria said, it's not, don't think that you have to become a performing artist, you have to be an extrovert or someone who has to be the center of attention in a room everywhere, right? You can have the most introspective mind, and you can be more within yourself, and then on stage you can transform into a different person, So
how to become more reflective after coming to dance? How to become more reflective and more internalized by nature?
It's a personal journey, right? It depends on why you do it. Like a lot of people would do it for the recognition, because there's lots of recognition. So there may not be money, but there's a great and a lot of respect from a lot of really wonderful avenues that you get. So, but ultimately the driving force is your passion to stay with it. And that's why in a stressful situation as well, it's not something that you don't let the stress get you, because it involves your mind, body, and heart, like an exercise or a sport. Even anyone who's a sports person would identify with that feeling as well. So when you play a sport, you have no thought of anything else, because you're so concentrated within yourself, you're so present in that moment. And I think these are all the things that everyone aspires for personally. You want to be at peace with yourself, you want to know yourself, you want to be physically fit. It keeps you physically fit, it keeps you mentally in a space if you do it for the right reasons. If you're
Adi, let me come back to you, because there are a couple of questions which I want to put to you and Harjot both, because I see that as young people that you have had a very challenging career also, and especially insofar as performing art is concerned. So I can just let me just speak to Mr. Anup Mendiratha, but before I speak to Mr. Mendiratha, Ajayji, there is one specific question to you which the children want to ask is, they say that we must have the courage to bet on our dreams, to take the calculated risk and leave behind forever the internal forces that hold us down. So what's your take on this, Ajayji?
Well, as I understand, I think the question is, do you follow your dreams? I mean, it's just another way of saying, do you conquer your doubts and follow your dreams? I would say yes. Because there will be doubts, and often it's completely okay at your age not to know what you really want to do. And this is part of that journey of exploring what the options are out there. But when you are about to make that choice, there may be that internal voice that cautions you, or that little devil who argues against the saint and says, no, don't do this, it's dangerous, or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, you will find an answer, because you just need to be mindful, you need to be understanding. You have, this generation has the benefit of so much advice, so much information, that you would be able to make that choice, follow your heart, and then defend that choice even to the voice within.
So as I understand, what you just mentioned is that when we wake up in the morning, we have two simple choices: go back to sleep and dream, or wake up and chase your dreams. The choice is yours. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'll just come back to you, Mr. Basaria, but let's have Mr. Anup Kumar Mehdiratha, another alumni of the Sarwan School of 1981 batch. He joined the judicial services as the Metropolitan Magistrate Civil Judge in Delhi in 1992. Before that, he was a lawyer, and he worked in the chambers of Honorable late Mr. Justice Valmiki Mehta and Mr. Pandit R.K. Sharma. He was promoted as the Additional District Judge Delhi in 2003, and later on he became the District and Session Judge of Delhi. Apart from his various experience dealing in civil and criminal cases, he's held a plethora of portfolios and handled various cases, including DDA. Mr. Mehdiratha was appointed as the Joint Secretary, Law, Justice and Legislative Affairs, Government of India from 1999 to 2002, and again was deputed as the Principal Secretary, Law, Justice, Legislative Affairs, Government of NCT of Delhi from November 2017 to April 2019. Now, this has happened actually the first time, that earlier he was the Joint Secretary and then he became the Principal Secretary. I'm like, that's the credit goes to Mr. Mehdiratha. He was also nominated as the chairperson of several committees, and presently he is the Secretary, Law, Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India, and is the first sitting judicial officer in the history of this country to be directly selected and appointed to this post. Mr. Anup Mehdiratha, welcome to our panel, and that's an awesome resume, what I just mentioned to our audience. We have almost about 280 students of the Sarwan School watching you and looking forward for the words of wisdom. Now, as a lawyer, you prefer to join the judiciary, and then thereafter, now you are heading one of the most important, I won't say controversial, but yes, surely most important post as the Secretary, Law, Ministry of Law and Justice, where you make appointments, where you sift the files of people who are supposed to be appointed as judges of the High Court also. So what inspired you to take up law as a profession and then shift your avenue to the judiciary, and also thereafter take this plunge into the bureaucracy aspect of handling affairs, which normally we find that bureaucrats always handle as Secretary Law? Mr. Anup Mehdiratha.
Thank you, Sushil, for your kind words and for your liberal appreciation. I express my heartfelt gratitude for giving me an opportunity to share my views on this important subject while the students are in the stage of development. I'm also glad to meet the other panelists who have been icon in one or the other way and have made a mark in their respective fields. Perhaps it's a nostalgic feeling to be connected with Sarwan Public School. And I think that those were my finest days. And it has been a privilege to be a student of Sarwan Public School, which happened to be a premier institution about 4 days back and has been still maintaining that stature. And I must congratulate the students of the school that they can't have a better foundation, They couldn't have a better foundation by studying in any other school. Sushi, perhaps each one of us holds a different approach as to how excellence can be achieved. And there is no single definitive path, I would say. Perhaps in 1981, I was a medical student and I didn't clear the medical examinations and the choice of law was by way of default, as Mr. Vinay Vittal also mentioned in the beginning. It's only later on that the law has developed in a way wherein the 5-year courses were introduced. But I think that I relate myself to the 97% of the students. It's only the 3% of the students who actually make it to IITs, civil services, and the medical exam, and they clear the medical examinations. So I think that my journey and my story would be an encouragement for the 97% of the students who, for whom I have a message that they can always make a mark as and when they put in the requisite efforts for achieving the goals or the destination which they choose. Well, I passed out and completed my law in 1987, and for a period of about 5 years, I was associated in legal practice with some of the top legal practitioners at that point of time. Late Honorable Mr. Justice Valmiki Mehta, and later on with Pandit R.K. Sharma, who also happened to be one of the topmost practitioners on the criminal side. In 1992, I cleared the Judicial Services examination, and then the journey has been on a regular path. Perhaps I had a good luck that I was given an opportunity in 1999 to be associated with the bureaucracy, and I worked over there for about 3.5 years. And later on, I got in again an opportunity to be posted as Principal Secretary Law from 2017 to 2019. Perhaps it has been a chance that the Government of India opened up and called for the applications for selection to the post of Secretary Law to the Government of India, which had been earlier held by either by the officers of the Indian Legal Service or by the bureaucracy. Perhaps I think so that it was a positive step by the government, wherein they thought of utilizing the experience of the judicial services officers for the job which is primarily related to law. What I would say, Sushil, that as it is said, good, better or best, they will let it rest till your good is better and your better is best. So I feel that one needs to take a chance in life and keep on working. The job which I had been performing is by and large related to wherein you have to keep your ears open and mouth shut. This is on contrast to the job which my lawyer friends are performing, and it is keeping both your mouth as well as ears open. So the job which I have been involved in requires a lot of patience, a lot of analysis, and a compassionate attitude. I would say that excellence is not a skill, but an attitude. What one has to bear in mind is that no one is a born achiever. It all begins in mind and ends with effort. There cannot be the same path, circumstances, and opportunities for each one of us. What we have to watch for is the opportunities and to work for it. The path depends upon choosing the goals, and it is not the shortcuts or the pay packets which one has to choose. What one has to follow in life is the integrity. Perhaps what I feel worked for me is the integrity and dedication, vision followed with an aim to deliver. So perhaps, Sushil, my message would be that you may enter any career at any point of time, but what you need to follow up is to use the tools of dedication, vision, and action at the right point of time. Thank you, Sushil.
Mr. Mediratta, that's very well said. I am slightly intrigued on some particular aspect. Now, if you would permit me, well, I'm posing this question to you as a panelist, and please, not as a judicial officer or the Secretary of the Government of India. your career first was as a lawyer who was supposed to be playing with words. So lawyers always play with words, and that's how they're able to, articulate well and get relief from the court. Then thereafter you became a judge. So you would hear those words and then decipher upon the issue and the facts of the case and give your judgment. And now you are in a different profile. So all these three profiles are quite different. So what would you advise to the young students of ours who would be taking a path for themselves, having taken the three different paths yourself, A, as a lawyer, second, as a judicial officer, and now as holding a post which is primarily of a bureaucrat, which is totally different than a judicial officer. In a judicial officer, you know very well because you've been performing for so many years, and we're just hopefully looking for the day very soon when you're going to be donning one of the seats in the Honorable Delhi High Court as the Honorable Judge. So tell us about these three variants of yours, please.
Perhaps, Sushil, it's a very tricky question. On a personal note, I would say that when I joined the profession as a lawyer, I found that it has been an excellent profession. Perhaps I would say there are much more opportunities as a lawyer than as a judge, which gives you a better pay packet. But herein is one aspect what I feel is that as a lawyer, you need to take sides. You need to protect the interests of your clients. But there is a hard-hitting fact too. At times it does happen that you have to protect the interest, and in the process, somewhere you know that you're compromising with the equity or the justice part of it. And perhaps that struck me at a very early age, and I decided that it's better to opt out for a side which holds much more for the justice and equity, and wherein the compassion also could work upon. So that is the initial first part of the answer. I would say is that you have to go by your conscience than anything else. So far as the second part is concerned, as far as my transformation from judicial services to bureaucracy is concerned, I would say that both of the work related in bureaucracy as a secretary law or a principal secretary law, justice and legislative affairs primarily is related to the advisory work to the respective governments. So it has been more on the legal side, which still leaves me an option to come back to the judicial services at any point of time. And I think that my exposure on the bureaucratic side or to the as principal secretary law or secretary to Government of India enables me to understand the policies of the Government of India in a better manner. And I think so that it would be more easy to utilize this aspect of the experience while delivering the judgments and keeping all the aspects of economy and other aspects in mind.
Okay, Mr. Mehndi, just one last, I'm putting a proposition to you, so I would just want your views to that. If the path is beautiful, let us not ask where it leads. But if the destination is beautiful, let us not ask how the path is, keep walking. Would you subscribe to this view?
I think definitely, because it depends upon the individual outlook. So it is what way, because each person has his own individuality. No two individuals can be compared. And I would say that one needs to go by his conscience and what way he has his outlook towards the life which matters.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mehndi. We have our next panelist, Ma'am Seema Malik. Would you please have your sessions with Ma'am Sudha Shastri and Mr. Dias?
Yes, sure.
Mr. Dias is also an alumni of the Salwan School, the first batch of the Salwan Public School, Rajnagar, and Mr. Dias was part of the first batch. Mr. Dias, welcome. And Ma'am Sudha Shastri also, we welcome you on the panel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining, Ms. Shastri. It would be interesting for us to know that after doing Bachelor of Science from Nagpur University, you went on to IIM Calcutta to do MBA. And then after working in organizations and industry like Aisha Goodall and becoming a CEO for Inputs, you chose to become a coach and a mentor for executive officers, for the people who were at the helm of the organization. So ma'am, would you tell us something about the journey of your self-discovery and how it could resonate with our students?
Ma'am, you are on mute. Mrs. Shastri, you're on mute.
Just a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that, am I okay? Am I audible now? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So thanks, Seema. Thank you for that. And Yeah, actually my entire career has been a journey of self-discovery. I'm also, I'm convinced that I am serendipity's very, very special child because, I just take you through my history and you'd probably understand why I'm saying that. So I grew up in the steel city of Jamshedpur, where everybody you met was an engineer, a doctor, and occasionally you met a CA, but everybody was a professional. And if you were good at studies, you had to become either an engineer or a doctor. There was really no other option that people discussed. So when I actually told my dad that I didn't want to do engineering, there was chaos at home. And, so to kind of pacify him, I told him that I wanted to do math and I wanted to do a PhD and become a professor. And because I had some professors in the family, it was kind of accepted. So I went off to do, a BSc in math. But nobody really took the degree very seriously. I topped the university, nobody showed up because they didn't think it was a big deal. So it was kind of, okay, so she's doing something and TK, but somewhere by year 2, I think my dad decided that he didn't want me to be going abroad. Those days people worried about safety, girls being sent away, all of that stuff. And so he started working on me, to kind of get into a professional course. Now, by then I had also figured out that if I wanted to do a PhD, it wasn't going to be in the Indian education system. It wasn't what appealed to me, not the way it existed then. And so, I decided to either do CA or do an MBA. So I took the CAT and I applied to A.F. Ferguson's, as an article clerk. And I went off for the interview. And I remember very distinctly that this person from A.F. Ferguson's told me, he said, look, CA as a profession is easy to get into, very difficult to get out. If you get into an IIM, it's tough to get in, but very easy to get out. So why don't you come back if you don't get into IIM? Needless to say, I got into IIM, and so I never went back to A.F. Ferguson's. I did an MBA. Again, because of my science background and, my upbringing, I kind of went in saying I'm going to do finance and systems. I did my summer training in finance and figured out I didn't want to be doing that. I didn't want to do finance for the rest of my life. The same time, I also figured out that while I was in that organization, all the people issues left me fascinated. And that's how I majored in HR, which again, went against the grain because there were very few people who went to IIM and actually majored in HR, human relations. But it's what I wanted to do. And I don't think my dad was happy, but to be fair to my parents, they kind of let me choose my path. And I've heard all the panelists say that, if you want to make a difference, you have to take the path less trodden. So, I did choose to go into HR. I spent 5 years in the corporate world. And then I had a baby. And I had all the problems that mothers those days had because there were no flex time jobs. There was no internet. I don't think this generation will even understand what it was like at that point of time. But the only way I could get flexible time was if I set up a company that offered that. And that's how Inputs was born. I set it up and we offered mothers flex hours. We offered women flex hours. And that's how I built up the workforce. So we existed like that for 20 years. And, the story is actually interesting because I had no intention of becoming an entrepreneur. I was just sitting at home. I was on leave and I was wondering how I was going to get back to working because there was no flex time option available when an assignment fell into my lap. And that's how Inputs was born, So about 18 years into that, I kind of got bored with what I was doing. And, I also felt that I wasn't really contributing anymore. And I remember sitting in office and complaining that I didn't like what I was doing. And what I really wanted to do was work in the area of sports. Like every other Indian, I said, we are 1.3 billion people. And we have very, very few medals to show for it. And barring our cricket team, we really haven't made too much of a mark in other areas. And just like that, I got a call from a sports organization asking me to mentor some of their athletes. And that's how my journey as a mentor in the area of sports began. So prior to that, because...
You also said that serendipity has played a very important role.
I can't
in
hear
your
you.
life. You've said that serendipity is one of the most important things that has played an important role in your life. So would you like to tell our students that should they leave it to their destiny, or can they consciously change their life course?
Yeah, so, I said serendipity because every time I had wanted something, an opportunity came by. Okay, and I really believe that if you really want something, life finds a way to make it happen for you. But I heard other people say that when an opportunity comes, you have to grab it with both hands. Okay, so it's, I think we all make our luck to some extent. Okay, the opportunity does come up, but you have to find a way to take it with both hands and make it work for you, which is what I think I did. I also believe that if you, if you're passionate about something, if you feel you're contributing, then it becomes easier to do it. And I heard Shivani say that, right? I mean, she did talk about how, you want to feel that you're contributing in that area, through education or, through your art or whatever, but you have to feel, all of us need to feel that we are contributing in some way.
And a student wants to know from you that how do we deal with the mental health issues which are all around us today?
So,
how do we deal with it?
Yeah, so, I think there are 2 or 3 things. One is, and, this is my favorite term, which is that I think culturally, we haven't learned to embrace failure. The pressure to not fail is just so high. But if you look at the stories of anybody who's succeeded or anyone who's successful, they've actually gone through a lot of failures and learned from each one of them. So, it's a mindset where we have to accept failure as something that is teaching us something new. You take failure as a stepping stone to learn something, to develop it. You don't look at it as something to be ashamed of. It's just another learning instance. And in the modern world, anything you learn today is obsolete tomorrow. Which is a boon, because you can study pretty much anything and find a job at the end of it, because chances are by the time you've graduated, what you've learned today is anyway obsolete. True. Okay, so I think the key is to keep learning. Now, as far as mental health goes, I think it's important for people to, understand that failure is not something to be ashamed of. It happens to all of us. It's about how we learn to cope with it. But more important, I think it's also, if we find we're not able to deal with it, it's very important to reach out and ask for help. Talk to people, talk to your friends, talk to your family. If necessary, talk to professionals, but it's very, very important to not ignore that.
And Ms. Shastri, a student would like to know that should I pursue something which I love, or should I pursue something which will give me a good life in material terms? Because that is also a requirement. The student wants to know that.
Yeah. I think, one of the questions I ask people is that, what are you willing to give up to make something happen? Okay. So the student should ask himself or herself that question, am I willing to give up a good life to make my passion happen? Do I feel strongly enough? And you heard all the panelists say that they actually gave up a fat salary to make their dreams happen. Okay, you heard Ajay say that, you heard Shivani say that, I think Anup said that. So almost everybody said that, Or the other part is, am I willing to give up my passion because the good life means so much to me? Which one is more important? It's called prioritization. Which one is more important, and which of these 2 am I willing to give up? Also, I think, frankly, I believe that you can find a good biomedia. You maybe follow your passion, or like Shivani said, you can do one as a hobby and the other as a career. Or you can just say, no, this means so much to me that it's going to be my job. And so maybe I won't drive a BMW, but that's okay.
A commerce student wants to ask you, Ms. Shastri, that there has been a paradigm shift from becoming a job seeker to a job creator. So do you see any future with the prevalent crisis going on around us?
So this too shall pass. Okay. It's temporary, but I also think, and this is very important, I think every adversity can also be an opportunity. And, because I work in the entrepreneurial world, I just see so many entrepreneurs coming up with solutions that are, you know, COVID specific. So, you know, there are robotic engineers coming up with ventilators, you know, there are people coming up with staffing solutions and, you know, just some amazing ideas to help solve real problems. And in India, we have enough problems for people to solve. So yes, I think there is a lot of room for entrepreneurs. Everybody will not become a Flipkart. Okay, but I think if people want to become entrepreneurs, there's enough and more room for it.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, this is Malik. This is Shastri. Are you suggesting that money gives nothing but a lifestyle which you don't need, as you need a life which has its own style?
Yes and no, except that in some cases, money is what gives people. Sometimes money is just the driver that people need. But I think everybody needs what we call a higher purpose. You know, all of us feel the need to be contributing, you know, to our environments, to our communities, to the people around us. And that is an innate need that every human being has. So very often money is just, you know, in the Maslow's hierarchy, it's just at the lower levels, you know. So as you move up, you find that it is something that you need to take off the table and find meaning in your life through the stuff that you do.
Thank you so much.
That's lovely. Okay, ma'am, we have Mr. Dias. So would you please?
Yes. So thank you so much, Mr. Michael Dias, for joining us. And to all my audience, I'm very privileged to tell you that he was a student of Rajendra Nagar SPS 51 years back. Can you even imagine? Half a century back? And that exuberant, precocious child today is as enthusiastic as he always was. And that is what makes all the difference. So I would like to welcome Mr. Dias to this discussion and would request him to please enlighten us that after doing so much that you've achieved in life, from being a lawyer and secretary for the Employees Association, and then for being a judicial member as a representative at some of the best judicial forums of the country. What is it, Mr. Dias, that you would like our students to pursue, and how do they pursue it? Because you mentioned that human touch is something which is very important in every field. So kindly let us know that how do we keep that enthusiasm alive after 51 years?
Thank you, Seema ji, for inviting me. Indeed, I get very, very nostalgic every time I'm back with the alumni and with my school. I just gush and think of the beautiful days we had way back in school. But let me be very honest with you. My school days were really my formative years. My school days set my mind very, very appropriately. For instance, I have been always interested in the human mind, and I was prepared to give up an admission into St. Stephen's College, which I was getting very easily. I studied at Zakir Hussain College because I wanted to study psychology, because I believe understanding the human mind and all its facets is absolutely an incredible experience, and I don't regret it. The sad part of it is that Delhi University is going to celebrate maybe the 100 years very soon, but the fact is that in Delhi University there's only one men's college for psychology and half a dozen colleges for women. Nevertheless, I really enjoyed my experience at Zakir Hussain studying psychology, and I was extremely clear that I would study law, because law, to my mind, even as a young student, was that it touched every aspect of your life, from birth to death. Whether it is the Maternity Benefit Act we need to discuss, or we need to discuss the will a person is making, it's through and through you have law. And most importantly, law, I find, is, you know, once you know the law, you understand the law, you understand the nuances of law, it gives you a certain sense of self-confidence, which, you know, helps you battle forward. So that's been my start in this career. I must thank the school because today I very effectively cross-examine witnesses in court. I remember my days way back in the late 60s at school. Well, I have an English name, Michael Dias, so my Hindi was atrocious, and I thank my teacher, Mr. D.K. Pant, who, you know, went out of his way to help me to master higher Hindi and to have got good marks in higher Hindi, and which today even helps me in my cross-examination in court. So, I mean, I owe a lot to my foundation at my school in Salvan School, Rajendra Nagar, which I passed out in the year 1969. Yes, I did have Shakti Kapoor with me as one of my classmates. I can only share one thing with you about him, was that what you see him in the movies is exactly what he was in school. We called him Dramebaz in school right throughout. So that's how my journey started with the school.
So with the kind of career that you've led, and with ESI, ILO, and judicial services, so what role has your foundation years in the school played in your life today when you look back at it half a century back, which is an incredible period of time, incredible span of time? So what is it that has still continued to be with you from the school?
Well, if you were to ask me one particular aspect that really, you know, built me from my school days right through, is the thought of compassion. Let me be very honest with you. People think of lawyers and the legal profession as a fairly cutthroat, competitive area of work. I have somehow felt that this area of compassion and this feeling of compassion is very important. And why I say that particularly is that I, over the years, built a super speciality in employment laws. You see, when I passed out from law school way back in 1975, a person would join law faculty either to join the civil services or to have a fun time in university. That's how it was in the early 70s when people went to law faculty. It was very few and far who were very considered, you know, considered a career in law. And we were very few in that sense. And even at that point of time, you had, you know, people going into either civil law or criminal law or the taxation branch. Whereas I was always keen on the employment law dimension, which I feel and I believe very truthfully that today you spend the best part of your day and time at your work and in your work. So in that context, I find it works out hugely. And we are today in COVID-19 pandemic times. You know, currently amongst my professional peers, we are all discussing the matter before the Supreme Court, where they are discussing this government notification of the Home Ministry dated 29th March, where they say it is mandatory to pay full salaries, etc. And I have been telling people, please don't read only the terms of the contract. Please bring in the element of compassion. I mean, I could argue it that yes, no work, no pay makes eminent sense. But at the end of the day, the employee too has to manage his family and has his own economic compulsions. So I would request my young students who are into various careers and professions, please have that element of compassion when you address and deal with issues in front of you.
Mr. Dias, finally, I would like to ask you a question which a commerce student has posed to us, and that is, what kind of aptitude and what kind of attitude we should be having to pursue a successful career in judiciary?
Well, I would, if you were to ask me to enumerate it, I would say the first quality is possibly analytical skills. Number two, I would say you should be articulate. Your communication skills should be very good. Number three, you should be a good listener and observer and not be talking and talking and talking, but be a good listener, observation skills, research skills and abilities, the ability to persevere, work hard consistently. And number six, I would say compassion.
Thank you so much. That's
Mrs.
truly
Malik.
enlightening to all of us.
Mr. Malik, can I possibly, before I ask some questions from Mr. Dias and then continue with Harjot, I just want there's a lot of questions for Mr. Ajay Basaria as well as Mr. Vinay Mittal. Mr. Ajay, the child wants to know that a much used term, out of the box thinking, may not be short formula for success in life. Would you agree to that?
Well, I think it's again one of those pieces of jargon, but I think creative thinking and out of the box thinking is very important. Whether it always translates into success, I won't say it would, but you know, I think a high risk, high return strategy for life is a better strategy than a very low risk one. And therefore, I would argue that out-of-the-box thinking is important. Think creatively, think away from what has been defined and received conventional wisdom. And I think eventually you will get the satisfaction, if not necessarily the success all the time.
And Mr. Basaria, again, as one of the students wants to know that when you were pursuing your economics honors from Stephens College, when did you decide to take this career as a civil servant? Is it at that time, or you had possibly thought of taking it subsequently?
I think that's a great question, and I think some of our speakers have touched upon these ideas, because it's not always you will know what you wanted to do. I had an inkling of what I wanted to do right from school, but it wasn't something that I had fructified. So as you go along, you will find you have several choices. I had the choice of getting into the civil service, but also the temptation of going into the private sector. So if you see the academic choices I make, it was a risk hedging strategy. So I had a plan B, which is what I would strongly recommend for everyone who gets interested in the civil service. Have a plan B. If I don't get through this capricious examination, which is so uncertain, what do I do then? So my doing economics and then getting into an MBA was to have a backup plan in case it didn't work out with the civil service, or in fact I had seriously thought of a career in academics, which I was very interested in. So you may find yourself in some doubt about the final choice you're going to make, but there is time. You can make choices. You can even make one choice and reverse it, as Vinita has done, from law to dancing. But you know, I think one has to be open to re-examine one's choices in all stages of life.
So there's another child, Navnoor Shokal, who is putting this question to Mr. Ajay. It's a general perception that if one wants to pursue civil services, it's important to study humanities. Is that true?
Well, no longer true, because the way the exam is structured, I would argue it at two levels. One is that the humanities certainly help you in a career in the civil service, a career in diplomacy, perhaps more than the sciences. But the way the exam is structured, we are trying to funnel in all talent, no matter what stream it's coming from. So we have folks who've done engineering, who are joining in large numbers, even medical doctors who decided to take a shot at the civil service. So it's a general studies component is very important. There's one optional paper. So it really doesn't matter what route you're taking. If that is your end goal, you can get there by several different routes.
That's great, absolutely. So before I come to our melodious queen, Harjot Kaur, there is a question for all the panelists out here, and that's pertaining to the COVID situation. See, the students are under a lot of stress. There is so much of uncertainty. So I would start with Mr. Anup Mendiratha answering this. How can we mitigate the stress and the effect of this lockdown on the mental health of students? Mr. Anup, you're on mute, please. Can you, Mr. Anup, you're on mute.
Sushilji, perhaps pandemic has its own impact you see in all the sectors, as Michael Dias also pointed out, and student community hasn't remained untouched. And the pressures which are going on for the academic sessions, whether they would be held or not, is one part of it. And in what manner the exams would be conducted is another part. What is the period they would be getting actually for the purpose for the preparation of the exams is another aspect of it. So perhaps there are many multi-dimensional impact which pandemic is having on all the sectors. I would say that the students just need to remain calm down. The first thing is to maintain safety and health. That is the prime concern which they should be at the moment concerned with it. And the second thing is that this time can be used quite positively. Since there is a considerable development in technology, I feel that this is the right time that they can utilize for development of the skills in IT technology or otherwise which can be utilized. And the schools are also holding the sessions through VCs, and I think so it can be of great help. So I think that it's primarily they need to remain positive, and there is no need or concern to panic about it. The only concern is that in case any of the family member or any of them even develops any symptoms relating to COVID, the thing is to maintain calm, to remain calm, to follow the guidelines until and unless something takes way the other way around. So this would be my takeaway message to the students.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Mittal, what's your take on this? How can we mitigate the stress and the effect of this lockdown on the mental health of students? And they're very concerned because some of the students are not even sure whether they're going to have their admissions in colleges and whether they're going to have their exams, CBSE exams getting concluded or not. So would you please tell us, would you please guide these students and help them get out of the stress?
Sushil, I would say that tomorrow is a right day. That is the yoga day, which is being celebrated all over India. And this is an opportunity I would suggest them to meditate and to start with the yoga.
Okay, that's great. So, Mr. Mittal, your take.
I'm also very tempted to put in a plug for yoga because, this is a moment when we are all celebrating the 6th International Day of Yoga coming up on the 21st of June. And what we've been advocating globally and to students, for instance, in Canada as well, is that yoga can be a hugely successful input into your life, not just to boost your immunity, but also because in lockdown times, yoga is an inward journey. And if you're stressed out, you need to spend a lot of time with yourself. The inward journey of pranayam and yoga really helps you deal with stress in a very, very effective way. This is what we are advocating. This is what all the research is saying works. So it will work for you. It will work for our students as well.
Mr. Mittal, your take.
Well, apart from yoga, there are two things that I think really work. One, everybody's in the same boat. So, it's not that you are the one particularly affected. If you do have that realization, that does help. And two, right, you have to keep yourself busy. Right? If you've got classes that keep you busy, then homework and classes will keep you busy. Otherwise, add to your learning. There's enough courses on Coursera and other platforms. Add to your skill sets. You think you have some weakness, add to that, do some learning there, but keep yourself busy. I think these two things will really help keep you mentally fit.
Mr. Mittal, just continuing with you on the same question, there's another question which has been posed to you. How can we as students help the society to overcome stress, fear and anxiety developed during the lockdown? So there are two different components of this. One is the child getting stressed, and second is the child is putting a question now that how do I help the society in overcoming the stress as far as the others are concerned?
Well, if parents allow, they can be part of a social network and do some social work. Although it's very difficult to get the parents to understand if the child does want to do social work. But it is quite satisfying if they're able to do it. And two, if the child himself is able to keep great mental health, it will be helpful in the house itself, right? To have stability and cheerful house. Because the fact of the matter is, with small dwellings and more people staying in the same 1 room, 2 room, 3 room tenements, mental health does take a toll.
So you accept this fact that it does take a toll, and therefore,
big time.
As a nation and everyone needs to contribute in some way or the other.
Yes, it will be helpful.
Sudha Shastri, what's your take on the first question? How can we mitigate the stress and the effect of this lockdown on mental health of students? Obviously, one straightforward answer would be listen to Harjot or see Shivani on the floor dance. I accept that proposition of yours. But otherwise, what's your take?
So I think, the other panelists have touched upon most of those. I think yoga is a great solution, largely because it's introspective. It helps you look inwards. And frankly, I think it's a great time for students for some life lessons. Okay, one, what COVID has amplified is a situation that we find ourselves in very, very often, not in such, the dimensions are usually smaller, but it does happen to us, right? I mean, we do find ourselves in the state of not knowing where we are headed or what happens next or, what we should be doing. So I think it's a great life lesson. The second thing, and it's something that I would urge students, especially class 11 and 12, and I believe they are the audience here, to kind of look inwards and understand what makes them tick, because ultimately their passions and where they think they will be able to contribute will stem from that. We are all so busy with all our activities that we rarely look at what, we rarely try and understand ourselves, and I'd love for students to take a little time off and understand what makes them happy, which are the areas that make them happiest, and are there jobs that will use those, or that would allow them to focus on those areas, because then career choices become much easier. So I think a lot of introspection, meditation or yoga, as Ajay said, other forms of physical exercise in the house. Not everybody enjoys yoga. I personally don't. So sorry, Ajay, but I prefer other forms of physical exercise, and I think it helps to do some of that at home.
Ajayji, the child who's put a question that's specifically pointed at you now, he wants to pursue his graduation abroad and then come back to India for the civil services. Would you subscribe to this idea?
It's completely doable. You certainly can do that. That gives you, I think, more choices. You go abroad, you can re-examine your priorities. But if you've gone abroad, the good news is that the civil service is allowing you to make that choice between age 21 to 32. So you can go across. I joined the civil service somewhat late at the age of 25. And I think that's because I wanted to experience for myself the other options. I worked for a couple of years with an American bank, with a public sector company, and then made the choice that I want to get into the civil service. So, you have the option to go abroad, come back, and make that choice. Many people are doing that.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Mr. Dias, your response to the question, how can we mitigate the stress and the effect of this lockdown on the mental health of students?
Sushil, I would primarily go with what the earlier speakers have said. I am a firm believer that an empty mind is the devil's workshop. So the more a person is engaged and occupied, it could be learning a language, it could be learning, acquiring new skills, you name it. One of the panelists did say that your education, your studies, your other experiences never go waste, and I would entirely subscribe to that thought process. I would believe just keep yourself going in whatever way possible.
Okay, Ajayji, I think you are one of the most popular panelists out here. So there's another question coming. The child is asking that, look, my written test for the civil services doesn't seem to be difficult for me, but it's the interview where I absolutely shudder. So would you just give us some tips on this issue?
Absolutely. You know, I think performing in an interview, the written part is harder. A performance in an interview is a teachable and learnable skill. So I strongly feel that, you know, with the right mentor, with talking to your peers and your teachers and somebody who can coach you, you'll be much better off. You'll add your confidence and you'll be able to deal with an interview. So I would say, don't worry about your interview. It's teachable, it's learnable. You'll get better and better and better if you recognize that as a weakness. And I'm sure you don't have to at all be concerned at this stage.
So let's have the youngest star of today. That's Harjot Kaur. So let me just give you an introduction. Harjot has been absolutely amazing student of the Salwan School. She had a great challenge in her life, but she faced it well. At one time, I think she was in class 8th or 9th, she felt very ill, and her parents were very concerned because that particular moment, it was a deciding factor for her whether she could pursue her career as a singer or not. And in fact, she had to be hospitalized also. But then she fought it so well, and now she has a debut in Bollywood industry as a playback singer from the movie Badhaiyo, and she also sang popular songs for Sajan Bade Senti. She's a winner of a lot of awards. She was nominated for the upcoming Female Singer for the Year award in the Mirchi Music Award of 2019. Harjot reached top 6 in the biggest singing reality show on Indian television, Saregama, which was telecast on ZTV in 2017 and was aired in almost about 160 countries. Harjot, sorry you had to wait, but then you are the youngest star out of all our panelists out here and all the stars out here. So, okay, tell us about your exciting career. You getting uprooted from Delhi immediately after your school and going to Bombay. You had not even done your graduation. You were so passionate about music that your parents virtually were banking on everything, and they had put all stakes for you. In fact, your mother had also shifted to Bombay with you, looking after you so that the little daughter doesn't get lost in the wilderness. And what Bollywood is, everyone has a hype on this particular issue. So tell us, Harjot, before you sing the last beautiful song, Lab Pe Aati Hai Do. Okay, tell us.
So actually, I'm really glad that I got to be here because when I was listening to everybody today, it is so inspiring because I think we all have a common point where everyone keeps telling them never give up and follow your dreams and it's never too late. So I think my journey is all about that, never giving up. Initially, I'm really glad that as we all know, the foundation of anything that we do is our school. And I'm really glad that I was a part of Salwan. I am a part of Salwan. And I think I can see here a lot of the attendees are my school teachers who have taught me, and my music teachers, because of whom I could actually pursue a career in this. Naveen Jain sir and Kiran Kapoor ma'am, Zila Khan ma'am, whom Salwan called to teach us. So I think that has been really, really beneficial for me. And it seems like yesterday I passed out from Salwan. It's only been 4 or 5 years, but yeah, I think that has been a very special part of my life. And Sushil sir, I remember how much confidence you used to show in me when even I did not have that much confidence in myself. So I think that has really, really motivated me to pursue a career in this. My family has been very supportive. My dad also sings. He's professionally a mechanical engineer, but
he has learned singing, so that's how I started learning. He taught me how to sing initially. And then in school, I went to Kirti ma'am in my Salwan Junior Public School, then Naveen Jain sir, who taught me so much. And then I think every time, since I think a lot of you mentioned also that we all face failures in our lives. And I remember I used to give so many auditions in school, be it Indian Idol Junior or Saregama Little Champs. I have given like so many auditions. Since the age of 11, I started giving auditions, and finally I got selected when I turned 18. So all those years I have been getting rejected from one or the other competition, but I think that's what is important. वो बोलते हैं कि जो होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है. So that time, that journey taught me perseverance and to never give up and to keep working on your art. I think that was really important for me. And finally, when I got selected, for me, it was the right time because I could take that and pursue my career in singing at the right age when my studies also won't suffer. I remember I had just turned 18. I turned 18 during Saregama. And post that, I remember my dad, he gave me 3 days ka time. He told me that you have 3 days. It's your life. It's your career. You decide what you want to do. Do you want to go to Bombay right now? Or you want to enjoy your college life for 3 years and then move to Bombay? And I remember I told him the very first day. It did not take me 3 days. I went to him the very first day. I told him that I want to go to Bombay. I don't want to waste any more time. I will do my graduation side by side. I won't let my studies suffer. But I don't want to miss this opportunity that I have in my hands. Like, I just came out from a reality show and people know me right now. I just want to go and make my career in this. And as I think Shivani ma'am also said that she wanted to, she is a lawyer and she professionally dances. I had an interest to pursue law. I was about to do that. And I had made up my mind that I'll do law and side by side I'll pursue music. But I don't think my plans ever work out. Now I'm doing music. And, but yes, you mentioned that knowledge never goes waste. It is very true because today when I stand in front of people, in front of the audience, in front of other 10 people, I know how to speak for myself, and I have that confidence because of the knowledge and education that I gained in school. So I think one thing I would like to mention, and when I say this, I speak on behalf of all the students, that we have like the best faculty, because be it studies, be it music, be it sports, be it dance, in everything we have like the best people. And as Michael sir mentioned, compassion is very important. Like our teachers taught that in school, and I'm glad that I come from such a foundation where I've been taught such good virtues. And today that is helping me because when I go to people, they tell me that we like you as a person and what you have turned into. And I think I give all of the credit to my school and my parents because those were the crucial years when I needed them, and they supported music. I think a lot of people have this issue also where they come to my parents or to me and tell me that our parents do not support us in music or dance or any curricular activity that we want to do. But one thing I feel, if you have the courage, you have the desire, the zeal to do something, nothing can stop you. Everybody who is here today, they have that desire to be something in their lives and pursue what they want to do. And that is why they're here today. So I think that one thing, the courage and the zeal is really important. And once you never give up, you keep on trying, you will get there. Like when I moved to Bombay, I did not have any godfather in the industry. It is known outside that the Bollywood industry, you need somebody, you need a godfather there. You need somebody who you can approach to when you go there. I made this decision of moving to Bombay without any godfather. It was just the faith that I had in my art. And I think that worked out well for me. I never gave up. I kept on trying. Everybody around me motivated. I think the external factors are equally important as your internal factors. So once I moved to Bombay, I started learning sound engineering. So sound engineering is being on this side of the studio. You learn how to record people. You learn how to mix a song. So how the ultimate project that comes out, the product that comes out, it is because of all the mixing and the processing that has been done on a song. So I learned that, and initially people used to ask me कि तुम तो singer हो, तुम्हें क्यों ये सब करने की ज़रूरत है? You just have to focus on your singing. But I felt that it will help me in my singing. So all of you who want to pursue a career in music, I would really recommend that you do everything which is interconnected. You can try your hands on so many things, explore yourself, because I got to know so many things about singing while doing sound engineering. And now when I sit there as a sound engineer, I got a chance to assist one of the biggest music directors of our country, Preetam Chakravarti. So I have been assisting him for the last 1.5 years. And there I've learned, being a sound engineer, I know what I'm expecting from an artist who's singing in front of me. And when I'm an artist, when I'm a singer, I'm on the other side of the studio, I know what the sound engineer or what the music director is expecting out of me. So I think these two things have really helped me. And now during this lockdown, as everybody has been saying that you have to keep yourself busy and you should keep your mind busy. I'm trying my hands on production. I'm trying to learn different instruments, because the knowledge, the learning, it never goes waste. It will always be beneficial for you, even if you read, get into new hobbies. So I think it's never too late to start anything new. But as Vinay sir also mentioned, that he would have been happy if he could have started that a little earlier. But for me, I was lucky enough that I could start doing music from a very, very young age. And I had all the positive response from around myself. And that helped me to be where I am today. One thing that I had a problem with, which I want to share, because I don't know, a lot of you might be facing it right now, is that I was like, people used to comment on my skin color a lot at that time, and they used to tell me that
Harjot, once you are actually broken down in school after a program, and your mother was consoling you and saying that, look, Harjot, the color has nothing to do with talent. And there, right outside the canteen, and then I spoke to you. I said, Harjot, don't ever get into these complexes, because that's something which is going to drain you. It's going to kill your energy, and it's going to kill you as a human being. So you've really been through a lot of tough time. It's your height issue, which you also took up with your mother. You took up your competition also with your mother, but then you fought very well. So at the end of the day, when you travel this journey so much, what do you feel about your achievements? And in Bollywood, it's a very clear proposition. It's a pyramid, straight pyramid.
Yes.
When do you think you will reach the zenith?
So actually, I think it is never the end, because when I go there and I see people, everybody is struggling, and everybody who's at a very good level is also struggling. So for me, I feel the journey is still very long, and there are a lot of ups and downs that I still have to face. But one thing I have in mind, that I want to become a musician, a good musician. I want to do good music, that people love what I am doing. People enjoy what I am doing as I am also enjoying. It doesn't feel like I'm working even for a day. I mean, I remember we sometimes, when we were working on movies, like we worked on Kalank, we worked on Love Aajkal, and there are days and nights that we don't get to sleep. Like day and night, 2 days straight, you're just working and not sleeping at all. But it doesn't feel like you're working. And for me, my aim is that one day when I perform on the stage, and the people who are cheering for me, they know the lyrics of my songs by heart, I think that day I'll be happy.
Great. That's awesome, Harjot, and thank you so much. So before I come back to you, Harjot and Shivani, I just have one question for Sudhaji and Vinayji, as well as Mr. Dias. the proposition is that life is about destination or about the journey. What's your take on that? Sudhaji, would you answer that? Is life about its destination or about the journey? Sudhaji, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that life is a journey. Okay. And so it's important to enjoy the journey, you know, and if you enjoy the journey, the destination that you end up in will always be enjoyable. The problem very often is that, you know, we set out for, you know, for a particular destination and forget to enjoy the process, you know, and then by the time you get to the destination, you're tired. So, yeah.
Vinayji, what's your take on that?
So clearly, I agree with Sudha that it's the journey that matters. And the journey involves the attitude, really. You must have the right attitude. Because you just don't know where you're going to end up, because there are a lot of variables at work. But if you have the right attitude, then your journey would be, to my mind, beautiful and more likelihood of you attaining your objective.
Mr. Dias, your take on that?
By what
you're
well, I would go by what the earlier speakers have said. The journey is very important, but it is also necessary to have clarity with regard to your destination. And I can assure you with my years of experience that if you work with integrity in that direction, you shall achieve.
Okay, great. Shivani and Harjot, one last question for both of you. Though both of you are amazing, and the sort of struggle, what you've been through, the sort of life, is absolutely awesome. And I'm sure that our students are going to get inspired from you, such young stars. Now, please listen to this carefully. Often when we lose all hope and think this is the end, God smiles from within and says, relax, dear, it's just a bend and not the end. Have you seen this situation in your life, in your career? Shivani, your take.
Okay. Fortunately, I've had an easygoing process with my career because I never thought of it as a career, right? So anything that you just do because you love it and sort of let life take you towards its opportunities and then just make the most of them is relatively easy than when you have a plan and you think, so that fear of failure sort of dissipates in that sense. So for me, that experience is different. But in another context, like in the context of today, like for example, who would have thought the situation would have arisen, and who would have thought that we'd be faced with a scenario where, as a performing artist, I'm probably not going to be dancing on stage for the next year easily. Like let's presume that the vaccine comes and in 1 year, and let's presume that the fear factor and the social distancing and all of that will take a while to go. Anyway, classical arts unfortunately attract a very small number to an auditorium, and most of them belong to an older generation. So my path in all this time has also been, and which is why it's lovely to talk to all the students, is to infuse that sense of how we can actually make the classical arts so relevant to us. Now, while I'm stuck at this bend, because it is a bend, it will change. It gives you the opportunity to be creative in so many different ways. For example, if you cannot perform on a stage, does that mean you should never perform? No. Does that mean that, am I a dancer only because I want to perform? No, I'm not. I've discovered that, right? So at home now, you have people approaching you for shoots. There are popular brands coming to you to, because everyone is going inwards. Everyone is realizing that the pace was too much. And you need to just take a step back. Stop thinking about what you cannot do in the situation. You think about what you can do in that bend when it arrives. And there's always something you can do. So you close one door and then there's 10 others that have opened. It's about your ability as a person to keep reinventing and growing from within and becoming, a better version of who you are or a different version of that, So that's what I would.
Okay, Harjot, quickly.
So yes, I have faced this in my life. Before debuting for Badhai Ho, and before my song coming out, Sajjan Bade Senti, there was a long time where I was just, you know, watching people how to dub and how to do recordings. I was not actually working, and there was nothing coming out. It had been like a year that I had shifted to Bombay. So I remember I had a very low time where I thought that I'm not in the right direction, or I'm doing something wrong. And you know, at that time you do feel like it's the end of the world, but it's not, because just when I thought that it's the end of the world and I don't think anything is happening in my life, Sajjan Bade Senti came, my song in a movie, which was a big deal. It was my first song, it came out. So I think we all face that in our lives, in our careers, and it is the one thing, it is to never give up. There have been auditions where as I said, I've been rejected and I felt like it's the end of the world, but ultimately I did get selected in a very big reality show at the right time of my life.
Well,
So,
that's
yeah,
great.
I think
Sudhaji, Mr. Dias and Mr. Mittal, one last question. Not a question, but please, we want your response on this. Fear is the black hole into which clear thinking disappears. Fear is the black hole into which clear thinking disappears. So could you please help these students to come out of this fear, and what's your take on that? How would you advise them to come out of fear, not only with regard to COVID, but with regard to careers, with regard to exams?
I'd say two things, Sushil, just two things. A, believe in yourself, and B, trust in God. He won't let you down.
Okay, Mr. Mittal.
So I suppose this is just a corollary of your mental health question, you know, partly. So again, as Michael said, empty mind, you got to keep yourself busy, have the right attitude, keep adding to your skill sets, and I think it will take you through.
So we are focusing more on the fear. We are focusing more on the fear with regard to careers also. So we're not only confining to COVID-19 situation, but with regard to careers. So a lot of students have this sort of problem. They fear taking exams, competitive exams, and they just want to take the easy way out. So, okay, look, there are volley of questions. At least I have about 17 questions on chartered accountancy, and they're all pointing towards you. So therefore, I have just posed this particular thing. Fear is the black hole into which clear thinking disappears.
Yeah, that's true. Fear is, and therefore you need to, whenever you're taking an exam, first, don't think there's always a second attempt available. You have to give your first one the best shot, because, you know, every next attempt is that much more fearful, right? So please give it your best shot, give it all your hard work that you have, prepare for it as if your life depends on it. And I'm sure, given the faith, and believe me, everybody has the fear. 99% of us. So it's not you alone. And it's good to have that fear. Otherwise, you will not study.
Sudhaji, your take.
So fear is, I think, normal and natural. Everybody, even Sachin Tendulkar, when he goes out to bat, still is nervous, right? Before the first ball. So I think it's a natural process. I think getting over fear is a practice that you can develop. Okay, the more you do it, the better. So the more exams you take, the better you get at handling those exams. And I just think, you know, the idea is to not fight fear, to try and learn to deal with it, because dar ke aage jeet hai.
Oh, that's great. Dar ke aage jeet hai. I take it. Okay, in the rhythm of life, we sometimes find ourselves out of tune, but as long as there are mentors, guides, and philosophers like our dear panelists out here who provide vision, the meaning of life is always purposeful for a child. So thank you so much, all of you. And I'm really indebted on behalf of the Salman Education Trust that you spared so much of time. This was almost about 2 hours of my cross-examination of this great panel out here. So I hope that your responses would be very satisfying for the students. They would learn from your experiences, the sort of struggle, the sort of wisdom, what you exhibited in our discussion. Thank you, Vinayji, Mr. Dias, once again, lovely having you with us. And Ma'am Sudha Shastriji, great, awesome. We surely want to invite you to the schools one day and talk to our staff. You're a motivator, and I'm sure you will take this forward. Shivani, once again, we're going to see you soon on the floor. And so just don't worry about this COVID situation. You don't have to just consider.
I'm actually personally.
COVID, no COVID, music and dance is always on. That's Harjot. Harjot, one line of Lappe Aati Hai Dua, and let's close this.
Yes, definitely.
Just, yeah.
लब पे आती है दुआ बन के तमन्ना मेरी, लब पे आती है दुआ बन के तमन्ना मेरी, जिंदगी शम्मा की सूरत हो खुदाया मेरी, जिंदगी शम्मा की सूरत हो खुदाया मेरी, लब पे आती है दुआ बन के तमन्ना मेरी.
Great, sir. Harjot, just to tell the panelists and all the students who are watching us, this was a prayer which was there in the Peshawar school of the Sarwan school. So from 1937 till 1947, this was the prayer there. And Harjot has again, she sung it very well. And her recording is part of our school archives. I once again express my deep gratitude to all the panelists, including Mr. Ajay as well as Mr. Anup Bendiratha. For some months they had to go for their official duty. So thank you once again and look forward for greater interaction. Thank you, Mrs. Seema Malik. That was awesome. You did a brilliant job. Thank you, attendees, and thank you, faculty members. See you soon next week with great stars. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.